What is happening, Packer fans? Welcome back to this second Tuesday edition of the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you have not yet had an opportunity to check out my earlier show today with Justice Mosqueda from Acme Packing Company, highly recommend you do that. Always an amazing chat with Justice. Get to nerd out a little bit about the X's and O's and kind of go over some of the philosophies. We spent a lot of time going over Joe Barry and whether or not he was at fault. So definitely a ton of fun stuff in that episode. Check it out. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't go over those Pack a Day podcast memberships. If you haven't checked them out yet, there are 4 different tiers that are available to you. Even if you can't support financially, first of all, those of you who are, thank you so incredibly much. But if you can't, hit subscribe. Super easy, doesn't cost you anything and helps out the podcast a ton. Tell a friend about the show. Get those alerts set up so every time a new show comes out, you're notified of it. Go to the audio podcast, wherever you get your favorite podcast. Make sure you're subscribed there. Give that 5-star review. There are a ton of opportunities to support the show in some capacity. Any way you can do so is greatly appreciated. It certainly supports us here on the Pack a Day podcast. And of course, a shout out as always to our Hall of Fame and All-Pro members, Most Hated Minnesotan, PJ Wynn, John Wild, Shea Broad, Arnaldo Espinoza, Boom Handle, and Jennifer Wright. If you want to be shouted out every single day, check out those membership opportunities and you can be on that list as well. Thank you to those of you who I mentioned already, but thank you for all of you who just show up and listen. I appreciate it a ton. Let's jump into our main topic, which is going to be the film review and grades from week 2 against the Atlanta Falcons. As you can imagine, never quite as bad as you expect it to be, never quite as good as you expect it to be. It's always somewhere in the middle. There's always going to be players that we can talk about who played very well in the game. There's always going to be players who played very poorly, no matter if they won 31-0 or lost 31-0 or anything in between or outside. There's always going to be some positives and negatives. So let's start out with some positives. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball with the 3 highest graded performances of the day. Again, if you're not familiar, I grade every single player on every single play. I've been doing this since 2017. You can check out my full grading scale and how I grade everything over at PackerReport.com. Grades will be up at 1 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday. So if you're likely listening to this after that, those will already be up. But if not, you can check them out at Packer Report at 1 p.m. Central. But the 3 highest graded players this week on offense: Jordan Love plus 1.0, Dontayvion Wicks plus 0.8, and Jaden Reed plus 0.45. Let's start with the big one. Jordan Love, second consecutive positive performance, my highest graded player on offense this week. And it's always interesting to look at the box score. And you look at the box score, his yards weren't that great, his touchdowns were, and you're trying to figure out, all right, well, how do I put this together? The completion percentage wasn't very high. And it's always worth remembering that box scores lie. And a great example from the flip side of things is week 1. You look at his passing yardage and his touchdowns. Well, a huge chunk of the passing yards were aided by 80 plus yards from Aaron Jones on 2 completions that Jordan Love really didn't do much work for. And it was a great scheme. It was a great run by Aaron Jones. You had the big screen pass that he kind of threw across the field, probably made it almost a little bit more complicated than maybe it needed to be. Jones does the rest of the heavy lifting on that play. And really just the play call did the heavy lifting on that play. Then the Texas route on 4th down. Now, a great read from Jordan and a really nice throw to lead him, hit him in stride. There's certainly a level of work that Jordan did on that play as well. But Aaron Jones did a lot of the heavy lifting, getting open, making it an easy throw for Jordan Love, and then taking it the rest of the way for the touchdown. And on that side of things, like, his box score looks great, but there's an extra 80 yards and a touchdown there that Jordan Love didn't do a ton of heavy lifting for. This week, you have really his 3 best throws, in my opinion, that won't show up on his box score at all. So first and foremost, you have the very first play of the day. Now, some heavy lifting here from Matt LaFleur on the play call with the flea flicker and things like that. A little trickeration for your first play of the game. But you get the flea flicker. Dontayvion Wicks is running that basically the 9 route down the field. And Jordan Love, like 60-ish yards downfield on a rope, puts it right on Dontayvion Wicks. That's going to be a massive completion. If Terrell doesn't recover on the play, that's probably a big touchdown play. Instead, you get the pass interference. Good play by A.J. Terrell because Green Bay gets 0 points out of that drive. If that's completed for a touchdown, that is a totally different ball game. But it's a beautiful throw. Beautiful, beautiful throw from Jordan Love. That's not going to show up on the box score at all. the corner route to Dontayvion Wicks in the end zone. And I know some people say, like, take the throw to Luke Musgrave over the middle. He came open. He did. He could have taken the throw to Musgrave over the middle. I don't hate a perfect ball in the back corner of the end zone to Dontayvion Wicks that against 90 to 95% of the corners in the NFL is going to be a touchdown and an absolute dime, a perfect throw right to the back corner of the end zone. Dontayvion probably could have done a better job of showing late hands on the play, not to tip his hand and not to give AJ Terrell that tell that he can, bat it away. I know some people say, well, AJ Terrell held his hand back a little bit. That is all pro corner 101. In the back, you have to know where the referees are. Referees in like the back end zone in like the center, and then the other ones that like the pylon behind you. He's not going to see you do that. As long as you're not egregious with it, he's not going to see you hold that hand down. So that's just beautiful cornerback play. That's knowing what you can get away with in the NFL. That's never going to get called because of the positioning on the field where the refs are. They're not going to see that. So Dontayvion's got to do a little bit better job of showing late hands, maybe selling the contact a little bit, a couple different things. But like I said, there's 5% of corners in the NFL that are even involved in that play the way that AJ Terrell was and knocked the ball away. That's perfect coverage from Terrell. It's a beautiful knock away at the last moment. Like I said, Wicks maybe could have done a couple of different things better, but the ball is beyond perfect. And that, again, is not going to show up on Jordan Love's box score, but that was a perfect throw. And then late in the game, 4th down, 4th and 10, game on the line. You've got to complete a pass for a first down. And unfortunately, you had the penalty, and unfortunately, you had the drop from Samori Toure. The play is designed, Luke Musgrave is sitting shallow to kind of occupy defenders, and then Toure is going to come right behind Musgrave and open up in that middle of the field for a big completion. They're going to complete it. They're going to get up to the line. They're going to spike it. The unfortunate thing here is that had there not been the pre-snap penalty, Green Bay probably gets to the line and spikes the ball prior to them being able to review the play and get that, confirmation from upstairs that they need to challenge it. So the unfortunate pre-snap penalty really sort of wiped it out. Clearly from a Samori Toure standpoint, you got to catch the ball as well, but not an easy catch for Toure by any means, but one that he could have come up with. And I'm sure if you asked him, he would have told you he needs to catch that ball. But Jordan Love, pressure in his face, fairly immediate, right up in him, right up on it, hand right up there, like right in front of him. Nowhere else he can go. This is the only spot he can go with the football. And he rips this thing prior to Samori Toure even coming out of his break. I mean, the anticipation on this throw is ridiculous. But if you're going to do that, you also need to put it in a place still where Samori can catch it, and you need to put enough air under it so that Samori can still run under it, get around it, and have that opportunity to make the diving catch for the first down. You throw it to the spot it's supposed to be on and put a little bit too much mustard on it, it's just going to fall harmlessly incomplete. He has no chance. You put too much air under it, the defender is going to have every opportunity to break it up on his own. So the fact that he knew where to go with that ball, that he put the exact pace with the exact timing, with that level of anticipation, with a defender in his face, with all the pressure in the world, 4th and 10, game on the line, to throw that ball. Is it a high percentage completion? No, it's certainly not. But it was his only option on the play. And I would say 90% of quarterbacks aren't even attempting that throw, much less putting it in that spot. I thought it was a beautiful throw by Jordan. Once again, that's not going to show up on the box score. Now, there's some points in the game, early in the game, where he wasn't really in rhythm. There were some points late in the game, specifically in that 4th quarter. I didn't think he was in great rhythm. And the 2nd and 3rd quarters, he was cooking. He was throwing it all over the field to kind of wherever he wanted, getting some big plays, getting some touchdowns. And he looked in complete and total command of not only the offense, but of the game as well. And those are the things you want to see from Jordan. Now, the big play that people will bring up is the Malik Heath play. Now, a couple things to remember. This is like 3rd and 10. I hated this play. And you've basically got 4 guys, I think, running like quick, dig or in routes, or comeback routes, I should say, like right at the line of scrimmage. It's completely uncreative. And like 2 of the guys are running it. In fact, I don't know that any of them actually ran it to the first down marker. If they completed it, even if it was complete to any of them, it would have been close. And every single one was contested. They had coverage on every one of those guys. So there wasn't a great option for Jordan on that play, no matter which way he threw. And he's trying to get a completion and get a first down and get this team back on track. So as he throws this ball, Malik hadn't even come out of his break yet. So he's giving Malik a trust ball and anticipating that Malik's going to come open on the play. Now, a couple things here. Malik, I thought, kind of aired him out to dry. He did not do a great job of coming back to the ball, winning the route at the top of the route, and making sure that he was the first one to get to the ball, and didn't sell it very well. Like, in a way, based on how Jordan threw it, like with the anticipation of like Malik's going to come open, I kind of put this more on Malik kind of just put him in a no-win situation. So I didn't grade it as a huge negative for Jordan on that play because of that, because he threw with anticipation, hoping that, Malik was going to come open. There's nowhere else to go on the play. It's third down, and he kind of left it up to Malik to get open. That said, if you're going to throw a quick anticipation throw, and by the way, even if the throw is complete, they don't pick up the first down. So it's 3rd and 10. You're throwing a anticipation throw on 3rd and 10 to the far outside on that far side of the field, to your undrafted free agent rookie who had barely played in that game, covered by AJ Terrell, who outside of the pass interference on the first play, which was also a smart play, he had a phenomenal game. That's probably not the area to go. And even if so, the reward here, if he completes that throw to Malik Heath, and maybe you get a pass interference or something, you get a first down and you get bailed out that way. But if it's completed, it's probably a 7 or 8 yard completion and you're punting anyway. You don't gain much. The risk is what should have probably happened on that play, which was a pick 6. And AJ Terrell takes that thing to the house. So I get at some point, and we talked about at times of like, throughout the years of like, hey, sometimes Aaron just needs to trust his receivers and you got to give them a chance to go get the ball. Well, this is Jordan giving Malik a chance to win on that route and go get the ball. Malik didn't do a great job of it. And, at the same token, though, you have to know and constantly balance risk reward. Like I said, the reward is that you're still punting away on 4th down. The risk is that it's a pick 6 and the Falcons probably win the game based off that alone. So not a great decision ultimately by Jordan, but I did think based on this, like the read and where he needed to go, it's kind of his only option at the time he threw the ball was Malik. And even though it was a bad option, but he probably just needs to buy time and if need be, eventually throw the ball away rather than throw that specific ball. So a learning moment from Jordan, but not anything insanely egregious based at the time he let go of the ball. Just needs to be a little bit better of a decision maker in that situation and circumstance. Dontayvion Wicks, I mentioned really kind of the only bad thing on the day is that corner route where he had a pretty nice route on AJ Terrell, got a little bit of separation. Again, tip your cap to AJ Terrell, but the late hands, just, throw those up later so you're not slow motioning. So AJ Terrell at the end can just go boop and knock that ball away. So that's probably the one thing to kind of take away. But man, the touchdown route, you slow that down. His move after that catch where he makes the move on the safety is disgusting. And it's really impressive. And then of course he breaks the tackle and takes it to the house for a touchdown. That is a very fun play. You've got a couple other routes on the day where he just jukes out the corner and gains separation. Sometimes the ball didn't come his way. He's a pretty good blocker for his size, which you wouldn't think just kind of looking at him. He is a very, very fun player, and it is going to be so fun to watch him progress over the course of this season and beyond. There is some really fun stuff at the releases at the line of scrimmage. There is some really fun stuff at the break point where he's breaking off his routes. And now we're seeing some of the run after the catch stuff, and we're 2 games in for a guy that barely played in the preseason and training camp due to some injuries that he had. So it's hard not to be excited what Dontayvion Wicks is putting on tape through his first couple weeks. Did have a couple penalties the first week, I think a holding penalty and a false start. If he can clean that stuff up, he would have had a massive grade through 2 weeks so far, but still really, really fun for Dontayvion Wicks, and especially this week. And then Jaden Reed, my other one, you kind of know the plays, just showing off his speed and athleticism, got an easy separation on the second touchdown pass, on the little pop pass that he scored the touchdown on. That's just pure speed. Like, and he kind of broke a tackle towards the end as well. There's just not many Packers over the past few seasons that are getting that jet toss and taking it to the end zone. Like, he needed every bit of the speed that he has, and he is a fast player. He showed off that. He showed off his ability to race to the end zone and get in there. Like I said, I don't know of many Packers who are getting in on that specific play, and Jaden Reed showed off that playmaking ability. We saw the punt return in week 1. He's doing some really fun things. I think he's going to continue to get featured in this offense, and it's just going to be a matter of time before I think we even see a bigger breakout from Jaden, but really nice start to his season as well. My lowest 3 graded players, On offense, Rasheed Walker, negative 0.75, Malik Heath, negative 0.6, and Josiah DeGuara, negative 0.5. Go through these a little quicker. Let's start actually with Malik Heath because I talked about him so much already. The play where he didn't come back on the interception was a big one. Also, I thought he really struggled in run blocking in this game. That's kind of why he's in there. He's a bigger physical wide receiver, and he can be used in that situation. He got compared a little bit to Allen Lazard in the preseason and in training camp. It needs to be a lot better for a guy that is an undrafted free agent who every day is fighting for his spot in any snaps that he can get. When he's out on that field, he needs to put a lot better tape out there than what he showed in week 2. He'll learn from it. I really like Malik Heath, but this was a poor showing for him. And then Rasheed Walker, I thought the vast majority of his negative plays were at the beginning of the game, a missed blitz pickup, kind of a pressure that he allowed early, a couple of run blocks that weren't up to par for him. But I thought he settled in a little bit as the game went along, and I just hated how they used him in this game. This is a first-time starter, again, making his first career start at left tackle on the road in a dome. Just put him at left tackle and let him go. And if he really struggles at some point, then put Yashin in his place and sit him down and reevaluate for next week. But to do the rotation thing, first of all, I didn't think did Rasheed any favors. But more importantly, then when they did the rotation thing, they used Rasheed as the 6th offensive lineman slash extra tight end, whatever you want to call it, the U-Bacon formation. And so now he's got to focus on all right, now I've got this different assignment. And on those, a lot of times he was lined up on the right side. And it was just let that guy settle into left tackle, make his first career start, and don't put too much on his plate. And I think maybe had Green Bay managed that just a little bit differently, I think hopefully maybe that game, at least for Rasheed, goes a little bit differently. But I think the in and out, the having him play different assignments, the left to right side, it was just too much for his first, just put him at left tackle, set it and forget it. And again, if it gets egregiously bad, then put Yash in his place and bench him and take him out and figure things out later. But did not like how they utilized him in that game. And then Josiah DeGuara, just at some point, we can have the same conversation. We've had the same conversation about A.J. Dillon. At some point, there's got to be something that you do well. And he's a fine blocker, but he's not as good of a blocker as a traditional fullback would be. He's a fine blocker at tight end, but he's not as good of a blocker as a traditional blocking tight end would be. He's not really dynamic out of the backfield as a receiving threat. We saw him get a couple passes this week, and he can't do anything with it in the open field. So there's just not a ton that we talked about A.J. Dillon, at what point are you excited? All right, A.J. Dillon's on the field. This is what he's known for. This is what he meant for. Same thing kind of goes for Josiah DeGuara. There's not anything out there that he's doing at a high enough level that makes you super excited. If you just want that traditional fullback that DeGuara plays from time to time, then get a traditional fullback because they'll do it better. And if you want a traditional tight end, then put in a traditional tight end because they'll do that better. And if you want somebody who's going to have some run after the catch ability, well, there's a lot of guys you can find that are going to do that better. So just not much there for DeGuara, unfortunately. He's an okay get in the way blocker, and he gets to his spot. So it's not egregiously bad. We're not talking about a player that's on the field and you're my goodness, how does this player have a job? You can sort of understand, but there's just nothing that he does well enough that is sort of warranting the snaps that he's getting on offense, in my opinion. All right, some other notable grades. A.J. Dillon, negative 0.3. A negative grade and a negative 0.3 for a running back is still really bad. It's hard to get a lot of negative plays in the running game because so much of it is predicated upon what's blocked for you. But still a negative in this one. Had a couple nice plays in pass protection, which you would expect out of him. Had a couple nice runs where he ran through some tackles. And it wasn't, I guess, running through tackles, but more moving the pile in a positive direction. Definitely a couple holes that he missed and his vision wasn't good enough. Obviously, a couple plays where he stumbled where that wasn't good enough. So there needs to be a lot of things that are better for A.J. Dillon. Still don't think, based on the run blocking that was there for him, that it was just insanely bad. But we've gone on and on about A.J. Dillon through the course of the week so far. You know how I feel about it. I think there's a lot of better options out there at this point, and I don't know what he's ultimately bringing to the table. But from a grading standpoint, it wasn't oh my goodness, A.J. Dillon completely lost the game for you. But we saw in some key moments where they needed a yard that Dillon couldn't get it for him. And unfortunately, that's still going to be what people remember, people look at, and it needs to be better from A.J. Dillon. Another notable one, I know a lot of people freaking out, oh my goodness, Elton Jenkins to Royce Newman, it is abysmal. Newman didn't have a great game, but quite frankly, neither did Elton Jenkins. Jenkins had a negative 0.2 grade while he was in. I thought he struggled early in this game. And when Newman came in, he had a negative 0.25. So Listen, long term, it's going to be a huge downgrade. And I'm not saying like, hey, Jenkins to Newman is going to be fine. It's not. Nobody wants that. And Jenkins would have gone on to have a really nice year, and Royce Newman probably will not. But in this specific game, the difference between Jenkins and Newman in week 2, this one specifically, wasn't that great. Neither of them ultimately played that well. And neither of them were awful either, but just wasn't a great performance from either of them. And then Josh Myers, nice to see plus 0.1 grade this week. It's not a huge grade by any means, but he was the lowest graded player a week ago, negative 1 point something from week 1. So just seeing a positive this week was a positive, and something that hopefully he can build off of. If he can throw the game that he had on Sunday together week in and week out, nothing great, but nothing terrible, just a solid, even performance, that would be a huge win for Green Bay moving forward. All right, my 3 highest graded defensive players on the week: Kenny Clark plus 1.25. PFF and I agree on a lot of things. Sometimes we don't agree on some things. They had a really poor grade on Kenny, or not like, at least not a very high grade on Kenny Clark this week, and they had a poor run defense grade. I just didn't see it that way. I thought Kenny had an awesome game. He did wear down as the game went along, as every one of these defenders did as they started getting into the 70s and 80s for snaps on defense. But overall, I thought Kenny Clark completely dominated the first quarter of the game defensively. And as usually is the case, this defense kind of goes as Kenny goes. In the first 3 quarters, he was really good, and the defense was pretty darn good. In the fourth quarter, he just kind of lost some steam, and the defense lost some steam. I'm not putting that all on Kenny in the fourth quarter. In fact, quite the opposite. But he dominated early, and this defense was much better early. But really solid performance from him, who is off to a really nice start for the first 2 weeks of this season. Quay Walker plus 0.75, my second highest graded offensive player, my highest graded player on defense through 2 weeks. In fact, I think he's my highest graded player overall in Green Bay through 2 weeks. I think he and Zach Tom are my 2 highest. But I really like what I saw to Quay. He had the pick 6 in week 1. He did drop the interception this week, which was a negative grade for him. I mean, Ritter threw it right to him. You got to pick that off. But outside of that, I thought he was flying around. He's getting off of blocks way better than he was a season ago. He's playing with so much more confidence. He is staying active. He's rallying to the football. He's showing off his speed. He's really squaring people up from a tackling standpoint. This is a really nice performance from Quay. And if there's one thing defensively that I'm excited about through 2 weeks, it is the play of Quay Walker. So excited about that. Rudy Ford, I know Justice talked about, he didn't really like Rudy's performance in this one. PFF had a slight negative grade on him this week. I actually like this performance from Rudy. It wasn't anything groundbreaking or earth-shattering. I thought he rallied to the football well. I thought he tackled well, which is one of the only players in this game who actually tackled well for Green Bay. And I thought he kind of consistently was around the football and just getting people to the ground. Now, a lot of that was like 8-10 yards downfield, but that's just part of the job of a safety. You're making that last tackle more often than not. I thought he made a couple of really solid tackles when they needed him to on that second level, and had it not been for him, a lot of those gains could have gone for a lot more yards. So solid day for Rudy Ford. Nothing spectacular, but nice day overall. My bottom 3 graded defensive players: Jaire Alexander, negative 1.35. I started grading games in 2017, so I've graded every single snap and game of Jaire Alexander's career. This is the lowest grade I've ever given him in any game. Per PFF, he allowed 5 of 6 completions for 99 yards and a touchdown, and had 2 missed tackles. The missed tackles were notable. He had the touchdown that he gave up to Drake London. Also on the little reverse flea flicker play, he let his receiver, that ends up being the receiver and Savage one-on-one. And Savage couldn't make the play on the jump ball against a guy who's Mac Hollins 6'4" with insane leaping ability. So understandable to some extent. But Jaire completely let him go on the play and then got caught in complete no man's land. So he lets Hollins go, thinking it's a run, and then kind of starts to run with him, and then stops and turns around and looks at the player in front and kind of stays there, who was already covered on the play, and then sort of realizes that he needs to get back. It's just a very weird play from him there. He didn't really shut down anyone on the day from a pass defense standpoint, but the more egregious thing is he had no interest in run defense. There are a couple plays where he came up and he set the edge like he was supposed to, but he had no real interest in tackling Bijan Robinson. He had a couple missed tackles as mentioned on the day, whiffed on I think both of them, and just did not seem super eager to get involved in any rallying to the football or going and helping bring a ball carrier down. And it's just disappointing to see. And this is not going to be a long-term thing for Jaire. The run defense might be. I think this has kind of been, ever since the shoulder injury, he has not been as aggressive in run defense. Maybe understandably, you need that guy on the field and you don't want him getting hurt on a big tackle or something like that. But at some point, you need to do your 111th. but he's going to be fine as a cover corner the remainder of the season. I have no doubt in that whatsoever. He's a really good football player. This was a hang with him and something that he'll learn from and get better from. He's one of the best corners in the league, and I expect that he'll be like that the remainder of the season, but this was a tough game. Kingsley Enagbare, negative 0.8. I don't know if preseason was a little bit of fool's gold, but he has not been able to carry that momentum over from training camp and preseason into the regular season so far. I think he's my lowest graded defender so far through 2 weeks. His run defense has been really, really bad. He cannot hold up at the point of attack. That was very apparent this week against Atlanta. And he just hasn't had the high upside plays as a pass rusher to sort of counterbalance what he has been negative as a run defender. So that's been the issue for Enagbare. And then Preston Smith, negative 0.75, just lacking any sort of real playmaking. Didn't think he did great in run defense. And you just saw him at times, I don't know, just sort of stuck in the mud against whatever offensive tackle. In this case, it was Jake Matthews the majority of the game. So didn't think it was a great performance from Preston either. So Alexander, Enagbare, and Preston Smith. My notable other defenders on the day, Rashawn Gary, negative 0.7. You had a couple opportunities to maybe try to chase down Ritter from behind. You just saw Ritter run away from him. That's nothing that that's going to happen. I didn't downgrade him on that, but you maybe just a little less explosiveness from what we saw in maybe pre-ACL Rashawn Gary. Again, not downgrading him on that, but more egregious was, keep saying egregious, but more damning, I guess, was the play at edge, specifically in the end zone, where he completely gives up contain to Desmond Ritter and allows him to get, on the outside on a 4th and 4. He's trying to go be Superman and go get Bijan Robinson. You got to trust your guys to get Bijan Robinson inside on a 4th and 4 if they actually hand it to him. And if they're reading Rashawn, and maybe they're just going to keep it no matter what, but Rashawn bites inside, Ritter gets outside. You're putting Rasul Douglas in a place to not be successful because he has to worry about the guy he's covering. Plus, should I come up and try to get Ritter? And then he's in no man's land. One person, it's like a Jenga tower. One person doesn't do their job and everything crumbles after it. That was Rashawn Gary. Rasul was pissed off at Rashawn after that play and yelled at him right on the field, and rightfully so. That was a bad play by Rashawn, and he has a tendency to go big game hunting at times and want to make the big splash plays. You have to do your 111th. You have to adhere to your rules on defense. Rashawn didn't, and it resulted in a huge play on a 4th and 4. If he stays home and Ritter keeps it, Green Bay ball, and they don't have a touchdown. It's like huge swing in the game. And if they hand to Bijan Robinson, then you trust your guys inside to get that job done. If they don't, it's not on you. They got to do their 111th. And then we're talking about who's ever the defender on that play. But it starts with Rashawn, and he needs to be better. He knows it, and that was a disappointing play from him. A lot of people asked about Darnell Savage. Negative 0.1 grade in this game. There are times I will tell you, hey, the grade is this, and there are some things that he needs to clean up. But, and in this case, I'm saying but, I'm very, very pleased with the way that Darnell Savage is playing through 2 weeks. It is a night and day difference from a speed, intensity, and physicality and tackling standpoint than we've seen in Darnell's career. Has it amounted to a huge grade on defense yet? No. Is he playing winning football in my opinion? Yes. And like I said, I'm very pleased with the way he has played. Negative 0.1 through 2 weeks. Had a neutral last week, negative 0.1 this week. Some things in coverage he can do a little bit better. Did have a couple missed tackles in the open field as well, but Matt LaFleur always says make mistakes fast. Darnell Savage, when he is making mistakes, he's playing fast, he's playing intense, he's flying around, and that's the Darnell Savage we need to see. It'll pay dividends through the course of the year, and he's still playing a much better brand of football than we've seen at any point over the past 2 seasons. My big 3 takeaways from this game, and I've said the majority of these already, the majority of these already, but a lot of uncomplimentary football. Green Bay, and it really came down to the running game. Green Bay could not run the ball at all, which set them up for failure on offense and set their defense up because they could not control the time of possession or the clock in any capacity. And on the defensive side, they couldn't stop the run, which set the offense up for failure because the defense was constantly on the field and the defense could not get off the field. So just dog chasing its tail. Defense couldn't get the ball for the offense. Offense was out of rhythm, got the defense right back on the field. The defense was tired, so they couldn't get off the field and get the ball back to their offense. Offense was disjointed. You end up in this nuclear circle of death where you can't do anything, and you end up in a fourth quarter that they completely outgain you, outscore you 13-0, and you have 10 plays for 7 yards on offense, including a 3-and-out, a 3-and-out, and a 4-and-out. And that's how the game ends, and you lose 25-24. So not stopping the run and not being able to run the ball and uncomplimentary football, the name of the game. I was, mostly excited about some of the young playmakers in this game. Dontayvion Wicks, Jaden Reed. We saw a couple really nice plays from Luke Musgrave, Jordan Love, Quay Walker. Still some positives to take away. Disappointing that it was the veterans on defense. Your Rashawn Garys, your Jair Alexanders, your Preston Smiths, your Devondre Campbells who had poor games in this one. You would have liked to have seen, like, if the veterans, if those guys play at a base level of play, like just an even game, like they graded out combined like -3 point something. If they just have an average 0.0 day, Green Bay wins this game easily. So we can talk about like, oh, this young inexperienced team, they need to learn to win football games. Yeah, there's a truth to that. But more importantly, Preston Smith, Devondre Campbell, Jair Alexander, Rashawn Gary, do your jobs and play to the level that you're capable of, and Green Bay wins this game. That's what's disappointing about it. So that is going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for checking out this second episode. Go check out the episode with Justice and I if you missed that one. I'll be right back here tomorrow with Paul Brettel, another can't miss episode. Again, check out all the opportunities to support and subscribe to the Pack a Day podcast. Again, one click away just to subscribe to it. Easy as that. Make sure to do it. I'll see you guys tomorrow. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.